Hi, my name is Nina, and I'm here to talk about a very delicate issue that affects parents. I think particularly in Africa, it is particularly dominant in the African context with parents with parental homes. I believe that people should begin to change their mindset about what they think, about their opinions on certain things. I'm not here to tell people what to think or how to think or what to do. No, that's not what it is. But I want to understand. And my question is, why is it that when a child becomes rebellious and turns out completely out of character or goes astray, the mother takes the blame for it. But when the child turns out well, begins to progress, begins to do the right things, and go the right way, the father takes the honor. And many a times when I go to social media, depending on what the topic, the post is about, I see under the comment section where people will say, oh, she's acting like that because this is a product of a single mother. This is a product of a mother who is this, a mother who spent her whole time clubbing and all. I'm not saying they aren't bad mothers. I'm not saying they aren't irresponsible mothers. But I'm saying that most mothers, and I speak for myself, made genuine sacrifice to make sure that their children turn out right. That is why when something goes wrong with a child, be it that the child is sick, be it that the child is in a particular situation, the mother bears the brunt. And I'm not saying that the father does not feel it as well, but you see that this is because the mother has spent and has invested so much time in that child to make sure that the child comes out the right way. Now, I'll give you an instance with myself. During the formative years of my children, because they're all grown now, and that is why I use the word formative years, I made so much sacrifice. From the time I carried them in my womb to the time I breastfed them, till the time I nurtured them, up until the time they got into the nursery, crèche, nursery, primary school, secondary school, and even to their university level. It was so much work. It was a lot because I put in all my time. I had a caregiver who was there to take care of my children as well when they were at that early stage because I needed the help. There were times I would crash out emotionally. There are times I would just go completely, I would just pass out. When I say pass out, I mean emotionally. Psychologically, I was drained. Everything about me was drained. And even sometimes when you had to do even the things, some compulsory things such as praying for your family and doing all of that, it was so tasking. It was a daunting task for me because I was so filled up here. Because I would do the school runs, I would do the homeworks, I would go for the activities. And at that point in time, my husband was traveling a lot. Of course, the normal African context will tell you that the man had to provide for the family and all of that. But I remember so vividly up until this point. And my husband would be all over the place. He would be traveling for business, for work, and sometimes for pleasure as well. But I would sit down because I knew that the responsibility was on me and nobody else. Even if I had maybe one caregiver taking care of things for me, she was only there temporarily. These people are there temporarily. They're only there to help you for a little time and they will go back to their lifestyle. But we bear the brunt. I did so much for my children and I did everything that I could to make them turn out well. Even when my children went to boarding house, if there were activities, I had to be there. I had to make sure that I turned up. So at that point in time, if my husband wasn't around, I was representing my husband and I. Even before they went to boarding house, I made sure that I taught them the little things, the basic things they needed to know. You have to wash your clothes, wash your clothes. Of course, then we had washing machine, but then they had to understand that it got to a particular time whereby you would take your clothes to the laundry and you would wash. You would wash your plate, you would clean after yourself. They did all of those things. It formated their life, but at the same time, I felt like they needed to do more. This was me as a mother trying to groom them to have that sense of responsibility. But it got to a point whereby I also thought, I needed to take them out of where I was, to take them somewhere else entirely, where sometimes it wouldn't seem as though, oh, mommy, this is already too much and all of that. They had to stretch them a little further, just like people in the athletic scene, where sometimes it felt like their body could not do more, could not stretch more. Footballers, tennis players, and all of that. But you have to do more. You have to stretch more in order to achieve your goal, to get to where you're going. So I did that. It wasn't a very good experience for them, and that's the story for another day. But they did excel through that. So all of these things shaped them up. And the reason why I'm saying all of this is that I made sure of that. Even when my children were going to the boarding houses, all I did was I would go to my husband. This is the school they gained entry into, and I wanted. In fact, I did most of those runnings. Let me just put it in a nutshell. Most of those runnings, I did it. I did it myself, and then all he needed to do was to fund it. And it wasn't an easy experience. But then I made that sacrifice in order for them to get to that point. And so when a child in the long run turns out to be in a different way, that doesn't blend with what you have given to that child, I don't want to believe that I am supposed to take responsibility for that. But what I should do is to work on that and to find out where that is coming from. We have issues of peer pressure. We have, a particular kind of social gathering whereby children find themselves in, and they just want to do what this person is doing, that person is doing. You would see mothers, and that is why I say it is not all mothers that are responsible. Some of them, but most of them, for the most part, are responsible. The ones that I know, as a matter of fact. And some parents, some mothers might want their children to wear the best of everything. And so some of those ones who feel that their parents can also afford it would go home and tell their parents that they want this and they want that. But I will be the kind of parent, as a matter of fact, that will tell my child, I don't want to give you that now. I do not think that is what you need at this time. And sometimes would that make them to be able to tilt a little bit, to go astray and to say, okay, because mommy is not giving me this, let me find a way around it, let me find a way to just get, even if it means I have to beg for it or whatever. But this is part of the formative years. This is part of the training that you give your children for them to turn out well. And I'm not saying that the fathers are not in their lives. Shout out to the fathers who are doing great and wonderfully well to make sure that their children attain the best in life. Because their parents, their fathers who are like that. Their fathers who genuinely make that kind of investment. And so when they turn out the opposite way, how do you blame them? How do you blame the mothers? It's not possible. And that is why sometimes when people make instances and they say, pastors' children, they are the ones that are the most spoiled, because the minute they go out of that space where they have been confined for such a long time, they want to try other things, they want to try new things. And so when they become, rebellious or they turn a negative way, then it seems as though because they have been deprived of some of those things that they think that other children had gotten over the years. But this is part of the training. This is part of discipline. There are parents that you would hear their children say, my mother, my father is a disciplinarian, because they want the best for their children. So now I would ask again, how is it that a mother who has made that much sacrifice and put so much into their children will want their children to go astray? It is impossible. And then when you see a father, on the other hand, a father who has been, of course, trying to fend for the family, who has contributed in his own quarter, in his own way. I mean, the times he has been there, he has made his own sacrifices as well. But the mother, like I said, bears most of the responsibilities and the brunt of the children. Sometimes, there's certain things that that's why I think this is more in the African context. Because in the in the first world, we are in the third world. So in the first world, it's equal. It's an equal right thing, and it's an equal responsibility. So we don't see situations whereby you will hear some of these things. It doesn't happen because they believe that is why they are both in the child's life, and so they make equal effort, just as much effort as each other is making to get that child to be the best. And so, as a matter of fact, speaking about single mothers, because they know they bear the responsibility of both the father and the mother, they do so much more to invest in those children. That is why you see, well, from my perspective, some single mothers are more of disciplinarians than mothers who are with their husbands or wives who are with their husbands, because they know that they bear responsibility of two. So they want to stand into the shoes of the father and, of course, the mother. So they will do what they think the father would do in certain situations. And so I just want to say shout out to the single mothers who are doing so much, who are doing so well, and who has invested so much into their children to make sure they turn out right. And it is, if it happens that it went the other way, the opposite way, you are not to blame. I know how I nurtured my children. I know how I trained my children. I know how I brought them up. So God forbid if it turns out that they went the opposite way, I would search myself so well and say, okay, where did I miss it? Because I made sure I did everything right. Yes, I was a young mother. I started very young having children, bearing children, but I did the best that I could. And at some point, I was very strict. I felt like even if my words were not making much impact, you wouldn't spare the rod. So I was that kind of mother too as well. And they turned out well, and they turned out fine. So, I mean, that statement of when a child turns out, goes astray, then the mother should take the blame, and when the child progresses, the father should take the honor. I think that should be squashed. I think that is completely preposterous, and I think we should do better in a society where everybody is striving to make it work. So please like, share, and comment, and let me know. I want to have your opinion on this topic. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers.